females, because the name feminism is for females. And if feminism is talking about equality, then you can't do that. And another thing that he really talked about was that feminism is becoming very aggressive, very hostile. And, we don't really need feminism in today's world. Women have education, women have the right to vote. So do we really need feminism? And that got me thinking. That got me researching. And when I heard about the Global Summit, I thought it was a wonderful platform to express and tell you guys what I researched about. Introduction. So before we start with the presentation, I think there's some things that you all need to understand about the presentation. What I want to do with this workshop or this presentation is not give you a definition of feminism, because I think it's important to understand that there is no definition of feminism. Feminism means different things for people across the world. It might mean something for me, it might mean like a completely different thing for you, and that's completely okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some basic information about what feminism is, how it started, what it is today, and what it can be. And then you have the freedom to go where you want with it. It allows you to develop your definition of feminism and how it fits the entire movement as a whole. I'm also going to talk about the need of the feminist movement in our society, because that's something that the boy really talked about in his video. We don't need feminism in today's society. So I'm going to analyze whether we do or not. Role of women in media. Media is a very important thing that we need to consider, especially when you talk about a global movement like feminism. And the difference between feminism and the feminist movement. The difference between the ideology and the movement as a whole, and whether they overlap at all. Now, again, this workshop is going to give you a lot of questions and way more questions than answers, but I think it's a good thing. So let's dive in, guys. We need to again understand that feminism is not a single term. It's an umbrella term that has different movements, ideologies, philosophies under this bracket. The main goal of feminism, however, is to maintain equality between the genders. Now, what equality means, what genders are, these are again up to your ideas. But the feminism just talks about equality between gender, and it incorporates different ideas and movements under it. Before we talk about modern day feminism, I think it's important to understand where feminism really originated from. Proto-feminism. Now, before the coined term feminism really existed, there was something called proto-feminism. It started in ancient Greece and Rome during the 645 BCE. That's so long ago, I can't even do the math. Plato, who is a philosopher a lot of people know and really listen to and adhere to, he stated that, are dogs divided into he's and she's? Or do they share equally in hunting and in keeping watch and in other duties of dogs? Now, what this essentially means is not that, we are dogs. It essentially means that a lot of people at that time thought that it was a natural thing, that God or the Almighty, he sort of decided that these were the rules of nature, that the man would go outside, hunt, gather supplies, and the woman would stay at home and take care of the children. This is something that we as humans really thought that, oh, yeah, that's like a normal nature. But then what Plato really wanted to say is that, no, we're the only ones who are actually following this. That dogs, or any organism for that matter, they're not really adhere to it. So this is not really a natural concept. It's a man-made idea. And since we are so arrogant, we think it's a natural thing. That's what essentially Plato wanted to say with his quote. The English Peasants' Revolt of 1381 was a rebellion against serfdom. Now, serfdom is essentially slavery, right? You do a lot of work without getting anything in return. No wages, no services, nothing. Imagine doing that. So, we might not even think about it right now. It might be impossible for us to imagine, but women, a lot of men as well, but predominantly women, they had to, take part in serfdom a lot. Now, get this, right? They didn't get any wages, but the taxes they paid were higher. How does that even work, right? So women started a revolt, and this was considered revolutionary because women were usually seen as docile, as submissive, as shy people who wouldn't speak out. But this really proved that no, women will speak out for their rights. If something wrong is happening, women will raise their voice. And that's why this is an important trademark in history. Joan of Arc. Now, even in today's time, she is considered to be one of the national heroes of France. And, she led the French resistance against the English. She was a woman, so she wasn't allowed in the army. But what she did was that she disguised as a man and she went into part in the army. And she was so good at giving orders and, having military tactics that she started leading the French army. And when they won the resistance, the French government found out that she's actually a woman. But then they were so impressed with her that they still awarded her. They still gave her a lot of the titles. And this was again a trademark showing that women are equally as capable as men. That is the idea of proto-feminism. However, it's important to understand that proto-feminism was not a movement. It was just a sentiment. It was just a belief that women and men should be considered as equal. But there wasn't like a structured movement under this idea, right? The structured movement came along during the French Revolution. In the pre-revolutionary France, women had no rights whatsoever, especially in the terms of political realms, right? They could not vote, they could not hold any office, they were literally just passive citizens. Even if you were financially independent, you would have to listen to your male figures for them to give you instructions on what to do, what to wear, what to eat. Everything was controlled. Olympe de Gouges, which I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing, she laid the foundations for the first wave of feminism. Now I'm going to talk about the waves of feminism a little bit later on, but essentially what she did was that she promoted suffragette movement. Now what is suffragette movement? The suffragette movement talks about the political rights of women. Now it has two main objectives. Number one, to allow women to have the right to vote, and number two, for their vote to be counted equally. So it isn't just okay for them to vote. Their vote should also be counted as equal as the man's vote. These are some photos, again, as I stated, that during that time, a lot of people thought that women, again, they're not going to scream, they're not going to shout, they're going to be submissive. But we see that over here, women are standing up for their own rights. They're beating drums, they're being loud, they're gathering in large crowds to show that we are not going to let this happen. We aren't going to sit and watch while we are mistreated, while we are treated as inferior. During the French Revolution, a lot of women came out for the first time and started voicing their opinions. And that was something completely new. There was success. Since the movement was very widespread and very large-scale movement, we saw a lot of success. In the US, especially, the movement was very successful, and the Constitution of the US declared patriarchy as being one of the major threats that the American society faced. That's a pretty big milestone. Women were given equal rights to vote in 1918. Imagine, that's only 100 years ago. US is seen as the harbinger of equality, of freedom, of human rights, things like that. But women there only got the right to vote 100 years ago. And it's not just the right to vote. They got to vote only in small provincial elections. In the larger national elections, they still weren't given the chance to vote. However, the movement was spreading. It was in its infancy stages. And, the movement was spreading across the world, especially in the British colonies. So, that was a quite major success in terms of taking its first steps in the right direction. We see that a lot of women came out of their houses again, putting out placards, vote for women, marching on streets, peaceful protests, and all those things. The response. Do you think that people or the people in power in their big black suits, they're going to sit and wait and watch all this happen? Of course not. They have to respond. We saw that they started putting out propaganda against the suffragette and the feminist movement. In the first one, we see that this was an advertisement in New York Times. I want to vote, but my wife won't let me. And another thing that's written on here, everybody works, but mother, she's a suffragette. So this just goes to show you that they were trying super hard to paint women who were participating in these protests in a negative light. they had two motivations. Number one, they wanted to prove that the entire movement was illegitimate. And secondly, that the women who were participating in this movement weren't doing it because they wanted rights. They just didn't want to do their domestic chores. Another advertisement we have here is it shows a suffragette's home. It shows that the home is pretty unkempt. Everything is laying here and there, and the man is looking super angry, and he's mad because after a hard day's of work, he went out and earned money, and when he comes back, this is the state of the house. He's mad about that, right? And they started to show this in a negative light, where that if a woman is a suffragette, if she's going out on protests, then again, she'll not do any other work. All she'll do is sleep all day, and the children will be running around. The men will not have things that they need. They'll have to go hungry. They won't have, anyone who will welcome them home, things like that. And another advertisement we have here, it says, when women vote. A lot of things going on in this particular photo, right? We see that there's utter chaos. No one's listening to anyone. We see that there's a policeman who's speaking out, and no one's listening to the police. That means that the women are above the law. That's what they think they are. And we see a woman throw a man out of the window. We see people pulling each other by their ears. So they wanted to show that in a society where women vote, since women, I'm not saying this, but like this is what they wanted to say, that since women aren't able to make proper decisions, then the society in which they vote, it will be filled with utter chaos. It will not be filled with, justice and things that, they wanted to promote. We see that despite all that, despite the negative propaganda against the movement, the feminist movement actually allowed women to take part in the World War I and World War II. Now that was quite important because while the men were out there fighting the wars, the women stayed back and did all the groundwork. So they were building machinery, they were making sure that things were in order, the machinery, the weaponry, things like that. They weren't taking part in combat as actively, but they were doing all the groundwork. Even after the war got over, they were helping building up these societies, the war-torn societies. I can give you an example. For example, in Russia, after the war, a lot of men were injured and they weren't able to go out and work. In that situation, a lot of the women were the sole breadwinners of the house. So the women went out and earned, and while the men stayed at home and looked after the children. So we saw, the Russian government saw and recognized that women are doing something productive for the country and that women can do something productive. And a lot of women were awarded for their services as well. This was a major milestone, right? Now, I know that I bored you all with like history and things like that. I'll admit, even I don't really like history. So I have an activity for all of you. This will keep coming in between, historic facts because history can get boring sometimes. This is a question for all of you. Now, the human barometer activity, right? It's basically an activity where you have to indicate if you strongly agree or strongly disagree. So the statement says, all women should be feminists. If you strongly agree with the statement, you can raise your hands in the participants list. And bear in mind, if I see you raise your hand, be prepared to speak out. Is there any volunteer? If there's no volunteer, I'm just going to pick randomly. So it's your loss. I'm just going to say a random name. Okay, Alice. Why do you think all women should be feminists?
Okay, the reason I put my hand up for all women should be feminists is because a lot of people kind of get the definition of feminism confused, but really in the definition it's saying that men and women should be equal, and I don't see why people wouldn't want men and women to be equal, especially in our society today.
That's a very good answer. Thank you so much, Alice. Is there anyone who strongly disagrees? Is there anyone who disagrees? You can volunteer now. Feel free, guys. This is just a safe space. We are all free to talk here.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
So I agree that there should be an equal society between men and women, but like you said, the definition of feminism can mean so many different things. So if you're sometimes people define feminism as equal, and then other times the definition can seem as if it's saying that women should be above men and should be in control. So if you're saying it depends on, there needs to be a clear-cut definition, and once there's a clear-cut definition that states that everyone in society should be equal, no matter your gender, then I think I could really fully support all women should be feminist.
Thank you so much. So I love the diversity we have here, the
Can I
diversity
say
in
something?
opinions. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I agree with the statement that all women should be feminists, but I think there is something missing in the statement. Not all women, but everyone should be a feminist, because feminism and feminist movements are not just like if they're concerned with women, that it does not mean that only women have to be feminist. It also means that men have to support it, men must support it, and the ideology should be made globally acceptable, and everyone must accept it, not just.
That's a really good point. That's honestly a very good point. Everyone, okay, so we'll move on right now. Don't worry, we have a lot more speaking activities coming up. So thank you so much for participating. Honestly, I thought it was going to be complete radio silence and I'm going to have to like pick you guys. But honestly, I'm so happy you guys are enthusiastic. We'll move on, but don't worry, there are many more activities coming up. Okay. Okay, so now comes the second wave of feminism. So the first wave was talking about political rights. Now, the second wave talks mostly about the social and the legal equality of women in society. So it talks about the equality, rights, and amendments. Now, an important thing to note here is that, the second wave really talked about how equal opportunities does not exactly mean equal treatment. What does that mean, right? So if I have a man and a woman, and I choose both of them to be a position as a manager at my firm, and I give the woman $10, but I give the man $20. I'm giving both of them equal opportunity, but both of them don't have equal treatment. And this is something that the second wave really highlighted. There were two major failures in the second wave. The first one was that it was a little contradictory, because what happened was that during the 1960s, the US was in a war with Vietnam. And a lot of men, when they reached the age of 18, they would be drafted in directly to the army. Now, feminist movements said that a lot of people who were against the feminist movement said that, why can't women also be drafted? If they reach the age of 18, why wouldn't they also be drafted? And the feminist movement essentially said that, no, I don't think women should also be drafted, because, a lot of women aren't into combat and don't want to participate in combat. And this sort of, led a lot of the skeptics who were skeptical against feminism to think that feminism as a movement wasn't accountable, wasn't legitimate, because there were sort of like fallacies in their ideology. Because if they want to talk about equality, why aren't you letting everyone be drafted in wars? Now, the second problem was that here was when feminism got distributed into two bifurcated ideas, right? There were the liberal feminists and there were the radical feminists. So both of them had a common goal. Both of them wanted the liberation of women, but the liberals were left-winged and the radicals were sort of right-wingers. So they had ideological differences. They had certain issues about, things like abortion. Uh, a lot of them had certain different opinions on these issues. So feminism, it was no longer one movement. It was distributed into two different movements that were talking about two completely different things. Even though the goal was the same, but the ideas that they had were different. And so because of the bifurcation, there was a little problem because it was no longer one movement. However, there was a lot of success. The fact that gender studies were, they entered universities as main subjects. This just goes to show you that feminism essentially brought the issue of women to light. Because, women have been suffering for centuries as of now. But feminism was really the thing that, there was sort of like a catalyst to show that women were being, oppressed. It actually brought the plight of women to limelight. And that is something that, feminism can really be credited to. even if people are against feminism, they have to agree that feminism is the reason we talk about women's rights. It's the main reason why that even came into conversation. So yeah, this is about the second wave of feminism. Ba-da-da-da-da, another activity. Feminism should include all issues that impact women, including environmental justice and immigrants' rights. These issues are not only exclusive to women. Even men face these issues. But do you think feminism should talk about these issues? If you agree, raise your hand now.
Can I speak?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, I think that this sentence sort of demonstrates what feminism is really about. First of all, I'd like to say that I strongly agree with the statement. And in the previous sentence, we said that feminism can be defined in various ways. And what it seems to me is that people often overcomplicate what feminism is. And feminism actually means that we are requesting equal treatment, equal opportunities for everybody, regardless of their sex. And this sentence demonstrates that, because women are affected by lots of things that are not only exclusive to them, and yet they should talk about this, and they should also discuss these issues and solve them, of course, and be part of the solution.
Thank you so much, Mariam. That's a wonderful answer.
Can I
Is
speak?
anyone? Okay, sure. Please limit it to like 10-15 seconds.
So I personally believe that no matter what the skin color or the origin or the race of women are, they all should be treated equal, and they all should be treated gorgeous and amazing as equal. And I believe that whatever their skin color is or whatever their origin and race is, they are all amazing. And I strongly object to the idea that women should be treated as a softer sex, and we have power to stand up on our own feet in the society, and we don't need any special treatments. I believe that as strong, independent women, we can stand up on our own. So I believe that every woman should be a feminist, and all the women have power to change the world.
Thank you so much, Amaya. Due to time constraints, we'll be moving on. But yeah, thank you so much for your wonderful participation. I'm genuinely so proud, like, honestly. We have more activities coming up, so don't worry. Everyone's going to get a chance. Where's my cursor? Okay. I told you I'm bad with technology. So the third wave of feminism. It started in the 1980s. Now, the main reason why the third wave was incredibly important was because it addressed the issues that all women faced. As Amaya and as the previous speakers also stated a lot of times, that women, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of their race, class, creed, everyone deserves equal rights. And that's something that like feminism prior to that didn't really tackle properly. They focused on white middle class cisgender women because if you were out there on the streets, you had to be a little privileged. You had to have come from a privileged background to have the ability to do that, to have the ability to object to the patriarchy, right? So a lot of women of color, transgender women were excluded from the feminist conversation. What the third wave of feminism did really well was it combined race and class with the issue of gender. And this was extremely important. And the main problem again here is similar to the second wave problem. It's that it tried to show too many stories under a single movement. And that sort of, it should have done it a lot better, but it wasn't able to. And that's why a lot of people were sort of skeptical about feminism. But overall, the third wave was a major success, mostly because it combined all these different issues of gender, race, and class, and made them into a single united concern. Even if I am a person of color and I'm a woman, I should be concerned about everyone else's rights. And that's something that the third wave feminism really propagated. Human barometer activity. So female athletes should be paid as much as male athletes, even if their viewership is significantly lesser. Even if the marketing teams are not making as much money, should they still give out the same wages? Those who strongly agree, please raise your hand. I'm gonna take a random person. Can we have Anna? Anna from Mexico. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your names.
Yeah, don't worry. I think that, well, I agree with the statement because, well, that the women have not the same viewership as the men doesn't mean that she has not like the same abilities in the sport.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Anna. And okay, do we have anyone else who wants to speak?
Could I please speak?
Oh yeah, sure.
I was just gonna say I understand the reason why it's said that women and men should get the same pay, but when you think about how the pay from sport is actually funded and where the money comes from, if women are getting less views, which isn't their fault, but if they're getting less views, it does make sense for why their pay should be less in certain countries. But for example, football in America, I think women get more views than men and they're still paid less, which is where you see like the misogynist like views. But when it comes to other places like the UK or different countries where women sports isn't viewed as much, it doesn't make sense for women to be paid the same amount, because that just takes it from feminism to women just being paid more, in my opinion.
Exactly.
It
Yeah,
would
that's,
be,
oh, sorry, continue. Yeah.
I was just going to say, it would be like getting more people involved with women's football or women's sports and making them see that it's just as entertaining as men playing sports would be the way to like combat that or make women have an equal pay in those sports.
Thank you so much. Honestly, if we have time at the end of this, session, we're going to have a debate on this, because I feel like I'm also very torn, because I agree with it. I also disagree with it. So, let's see if we have time. Now we'll move on. Okay, the fourth way of feminism. Not a lot of people know about this, but it started in the 2010, so it's fairly recent. It's also called internet feminism, and it uses hashtags and posts and social media to sort of promote feminism. A common, a very large, a worldwide hashtag that we saw was the hashtag #MeToo, which was a hashtag started against the sexual violence that was perpetrated against women. The problem with this are two problems. I'm a natural cynic, so I always look for problems. But when I read about pop feminism, I sort of came up with two major concerns. Number one, the main reason feminism, right now, a lot of people get annoyed by it is because brands started using it to promote themselves. So it wasn't about feminism anymore. It was about how marketable the idea of feminism was. So if you go to a certain shop, they'll be like, oh yeah, we have, feminist ads. We have women trying on our products. So, our products are feminist. So you should definitely buy them. And, it was a wrongful marketing of feminism. If you are, spreading awareness about feminism, that's honestly very, very good that you're doing that. But if you're using feminism to sell your products, that's really bad, because that's just going to annoy people. If you hate the product, you're just going to hate feminism. And that's the reason a lot of people right now are super annoyed by feminism. And another thing we saw was that there was no clear agenda, because everybody's on social media, everyone can tweet, everyone can send out posts, and it was highly individualistic because of the social media and the medium it uses. But there was no clear agenda to feminism. So a lot of people thought that, oh, feminism, like, what even is feminism anymore? It's not a single movement. It's just different people being like, yeah, I believe in feminism. But what does it really mean? That's what people still keep asking. And, sometimes feminism does become a little hostile and a little aggressive. And, news channels like to call them feminazis, people who are very, dominant, people who are very aggressive for their rights and things like that. It is a little problematic. Now, it's okay if you're aggressive, it's okay if you're dominant, but the problem arises when men begin to feel like they're not included in feminism. Because I heard a lot of people talk right now about how men should also be feminists, not just women. So, I mean, if you're making a certain group of people feel excluded from the group, then there needs to be some sort of reform done to that, right? And a counter movement called Meninism was created. I don't know how many of you have heard of Meninism. But it's sort of like this movement that men started. They're like, oh yeah, we also face struggles. You know, we are also oppressed by society in certain aspects, so we also deserve to have a movement. That's the problem, right? Because feminism does not talk about women being dominant. It talks about both genders being dominant as an equal. So if men need a push in certain areas, then feminism should give them that. And if women need a push in certain areas, in a lot of areas actually, then women also need that push. So that was sort of like a little failure on the fourth wave of feminism's part. Human barometer activity. This will be the last question, unfortunately, and please keep it short because I have a lot more to talk about and we don't really have a lot of time. So everyone just talk about, I'll choose like 2 speakers, or if you volunteer, that's cool. And everyone please keep your statements to 10 seconds. The statement here is, we should regret the commercialization of feminism. If someone who strongly agrees wants to speak about it, go ahead. Is anyone, or should I choose?
I'd like to speak.
Oh yeah, sure, go ahead.
I sent in a private comment to one of the people who texted me there, and I'd like to talk about an issue that's very close to commercialization of feminism, which is the commercialization of the LGBTQ community. And I think they're one of the same issue with the same explanation. I can speak more clearly about that because I am a member of that community, and I find it very patronizing when a corporation, a big capitalist corporation that couldn't care less about the rights of their workers, try to appeal and talk to their workers who aren't as privileged on a lower level. And I think that patronization has alienized a lot of the people who aren't in these communities from people within the community, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Honestly, I agree with whatever you said, and I do find it really patronizing when, you know, corporations, if you support feminism, that's totally cool. But if you're just using feminism to promote your products, that's honestly like really demeaning to the movement in itself. And now we move on. Feminism versus egalitarianism. Now it's important to understand the difference between the two. Egalitarianism is equality for everyone. So basically, imagine a race, right? A race where everyone has different starting points. Person A starts from here and person B starts from here. What egalitarianism would do is that the finishing line would be the same for both of them. But that's not really how it should be, right? Because as you can see in the images, there's a difference between equality and equity. According to the needs, you need to, you know, help or, you know, sort of aid the particular person or the movement. And feminism should not support egalitarianism, mostly because it's not just about women. It's about, as one of the members stated, that, you know, the LGBTQ, they're also part of the gender spectrum. They also, they also have certain needs that they're not being met by society. So if you say that, oh, everyone deserves the same rights, of course everyone deserves the same rights, but the means to get to those rights are not the same for everyone. Because some people already have those rights, and some people need extra pushes to be able to get those rights. So feminism and egalitarianism should not go hand in hand, because equality isn't what we need, it's equity. It's everyone being equal, but everyone needing different arenas and different pushes to get to that equality. So I hope the difference is clear. Now, the relation between SDG 5 and feminism. So SDG 5 talks about gender equality, and its goal is to achieve gender equality and empower all girls and women. Now, do we still need feminism in today's day? And don't we already have education? Don't we already have, you know, vote? Don't we already have a lot of the other rights that men have? 2 responses. Number 1, nowadays, misogyny and patriarchy isn't so in your face. It's in the subtle things. It's in the subtle wage gaps. It's in the subtle ways that women are, you know, when women are told that they're not strong enough, that they are not emotionally strong enough. We see that although more women are there in the labor market now than ever before, the disparity between the wages they receive, the rights they receive, the treatment they have, there's still a major disparity. We see that climate change and disasters and wars and conflicts, they continue to affect women disproportionately more than men. We see that women earn 77 cents for every $1 a man earns. 24%, only 24% of national parliamentarians are women. Women do 2.6 times more unpaid care and domestic work than men do. And for every female movie character, there are 2.24 men. A lot of times, for example, like the Avengers or the Marvel, we have two superheroes who are women, and it's completely okay. And I'm not saying that you should, get women to be the lead actors only because they're women. But is it really that there is no other superhero that can be woman? And the female superheroes are fairly recent. Long time ago, it was just Superman, Batman. I know that's DC, but I'm really not into all these things. And get this straight, guys. Only 6 countries across the world, 6, I can count them on one hand, that's how less they are, give equal working rights to men and women. 6 countries. Honestly, I was mind blown when I read this fact because it doesn't seem true, but it really is. Women in politics. So if a woman decides to run for a position in the office, it isn't just a political career that's considered. It isn't just her political prowess. It's also how she smiles, how she sits, how she behaves. I don't know how true this is, but a lot of publications, including BBC and New York Times, they analyzed that one of the reasons why Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 presidential election was because she was a woman, was because people didn't think that a woman could handle the burden, handle the pressure, right? Even in mass media, women are objectified and typecasted. Women are, put in certain boxes, and there are unrealistic expectations set. A very common example is Sleeping Beauty. Now, I don't know how many of you watched Sleeping Beauty, but I watched it when I was 4 years old. And that's some terrible misogyny, patriarchy being portrayed in the movie that should not reach to a 4-year-old girl, because it should not reach anyone, but especially 4-year-olds or children, because they're so impressionable, right? When they see that, oh, Sleeping Beauty, all she does is sleep and waits for her Prince Charming to arrive. She's a damsel in distress. Oh my God, I need someone to help me. If that's how women are being portrayed, especially for children movies and TV shows, then that's highly problematic because children will grow up to think that that's completely normal. And if someone mistreats them in that way, and if someone thinks that they're not capable enough, then women will think that it's okay. Because that's what we saw in the movies. That's what we saw Sleeping Beauty go through, right? So I think that's just normal. Women are typecasted in certain ways in the media, even in movies, even in TV shows, even in children TV shows and movies. And even today, the subtle signs of patriarchy and misogyny are very, very much prevalent in the society. So even if there's no blatant misogyny, which there is quite plenty of, these subtle signs are also equally problematic because they slightly and ever so slowly sort of make you think that you are less, that you do not deserve the rights, that your voice is not equally as important as anyone else's voice. These are the small, small issues that lead you to build up to that point. And it's not just for women, right? It's also for men, where they see things like this and they see that they have to be the Prince Charming, that they have to go save the women and be this masculine, strong person. Men aren't allowed to show their weak sides because they are portrayed as strong people in mass media. They're portrayed as people who do not cry, who do not show their emotions, and they don't have any emotions for that matter. And they're portrayed in that way. And so then when they grow up, they don't understand emotions as well as they should. And nowadays, your IQ isn't as important as your EQ is. EQ stands for emotional quotient. So building your emotions and developing them are also equally important, which is something that men and women truly lack in because of how mass media, depicts men and women in their certain depictions. Now, even though I criticized feminism, quite a lot in my workshop. I need everyone to understand that feminism, irrespective of how many flaws it has done something very, very important. It has made women feel like they matter. It has made women feel like their issues are equally as important as anyone else's issues. Even trivial matters. Even if a woman is going through something that people usually deem as trivial, it has given women the strength to stand up and speak out of their oppression, out of whatever problems they're facing. There is a long, long, long way to go to reach where we should reach in terms of equality. But feminism allowed women to take the first few steps. And irrespective of whatever you say about feminism, you always have to give credit for that matter. You might be wondering, why did I say ladies first? Why didn't I say equality for everyone? Why did I say, ladies should go out first? Ladies first, not because ladies are more important, but because ladies are equally as important. Thank you so much. That's the end of my presentation. If anyone has anything that they would like to say, if they would like to let me know, then go ahead. And I think we don't have a lot of time right now. So if you would like to go ahead and follow me on Instagram, shameless self promo. I'm going to give my Instagram right now on chat. We can definitely, build connections, talk to each other, and discuss about many things. We can discuss about our favorite TV shows or what we think about feminism in the grand scheme of things. Anything you would like to discuss. But thank you so much for patiently listening to me and, being such a nice people, honestly. You were so enthusiastic. I was super nervous in the beginning. I don't know if you noticed, but you guys were so nice and so enthusiastic and so welcoming that I just, honestly, I didn't feel like I was talking to, people I'd never met before. I just felt like I was talking to friends. And if there's anything you would like to, know about me or, discuss right now, feel free. I think we have 1 more minute, so we're going to use that 1 minute.
Excuse me, can I know your email, please? Because I'm not in Instagram.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll drop my email as well.
Well, Arya, also, I just want to thank you on behalf of MUN Impacts. I've been setting in on sessions, all morning, and I've never seen the level of both just insightful dialogue in the chat. I do want to tell you that this is kind of one of the reasons why we set MUN Impact up. It's just to take all the things that we kind of acquire as global citizens and find a way to discuss them, eventually take action on them. If you've enjoyed this conversation, I would encourage you, at the very least, follow both her and also MUN Impact on social media, but look for those opportunities to get involved in these conversations. Starting in September, we're going to be working both on the SDG challenges, but working on a platform where we can gather people around specific SDG targets. So this is obviously SDG 5 and all those related. So please stay involved with us. It's been thrilling to have you here. Thank you so much for our presenters. And I also will be joining us at the social hour and also tomorrow for really an incredible plenary speaker for community tasting with Sam Altman, a former MUN delegate, former president of Y Combinator, and a leading global expert in AI. So you're not going to want to miss that. So, and any additional questions that's been dropped here, we have a help desk. It's open 24/7, literally manned by some of my crazy students. It's open 24/7. So if you want to drop by, learn more about MUN Impact. If you don't see it here, you'll find it on social media. Any last words, Arya? And then I'm going to hit the button, kick us all out. I hate to do that. It feels so brutal, but anyway, I have to do it.
No, nothing. I'm just filled with gratitude for everyone, especially for MUN Impact for giving me this platform to talk to so many people from different parts of the world. And honestly, I've had such an intelligent and intellectual dialogue right now. I feel like I'm super enlightened. I just learned so much in 45 minutes, which is crazy. Thank you, MUN Impact, and thank you to everyone for listening.
Thank you.
All right,
You're
folks.
amazing.
Thank you.
With that, I'm gonna kick us all out of the room. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
connect
Bye-bye.
online.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Let's connect on Instagram. Bye-bye.
Wow, look at the diversity of this crowd. Whoa,
Honestly,
amazing.
I'm
I didn't
mind
get
blown.
that.
Just amazing. Yeah. Our next global summit's coming up in October. We're going to do this again. So this will not be the last time. All right. Thank you, my dear. It was beautiful. I'm going to kick us all out of this room so I can go open the social hour, but thank you so much. Bye. Bye, everyone. Take care.